Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to talk about anxiety, right? Anxiety, a word that is thrown around a lot, but is also something that's been around since the beginning of time, right? So I myself have struggled with anxiety a lot of my life, as well as, ADHD, whatever you want to call it, just someone that, worries a lot and doesn't like sitting still, right? And I know a lot of people, especially who are in our age range, I'm 25 to give some context, people deal with this stuff and it's very real. I wanted to kind of share some of my experiences with the feeling and the emotion, maybe some examples and, maybe just some things that I've learned myself to try to combat it the best way I can. And implementing these couple things has actually helped a tremendous amount. I'm not on any meds. I'm not on anything like that. It's literally just things that I've kind of reframed or things that I, tried to implement into my daily life. So I'll give you three main things. And I'd love to hear down in the comments if you guys deal with anxiety or, kind of your thoughts on what I'm about to say. But the first one, and this sounds obvious, but the first one I would say is to try and change your environment, right? So a lot of people think that your environment doesn't necessarily play a huge part into how you acted today, but I would really argue that that's not true, right? So what I mean by that is if stuff causes you anxiety or stuff triggers your anxiety, the simplest solution would be to try and remove those triggers, right? So a perfect example, and this is something that's very minimal, but if you're in a bunch of big group chats with, people from high school or people who are doing nothing with their life, just want to drama, just want to gossip, or just people that literally provide you no value, at least for me, I get anxiety having to worry about what's all being said in there, all these notifications, things like that. And I've just realized that I don't want to be in big groups, whether that's physical, in person, or just texting groups where there's just drama nonstop. And that actually has helped my anxiety go down, right? There's other things like just your environment, especially before you go to bed, right? So a lot of people think that, anxiety is this new thing, this new idea that people have made up. Dude, it's been around since the beginning of time. When the soldiers stormed, Normandy in World War II, you think they were anxious? They were probably pretty anxious before they ran up on the beach getting shot at. They were probably pretty anxious. Your ancestors were probably pretty anxious when, a tiger was in their village and they had to outrun a tiger, right? So people have always worried. But we live in this modern world society where you're getting pulled in so many different directions. There's new news lines coming out every day with planes crashing, drones, bridge collapsing. It's just fear mongering. And it's good to be informed of what's going on in society. But I think everyone can agree that the mainstream media is pretty much engineered to fearmonger you and control you, because people who are afraid are people who are easy to control, right? So I think it's a combination of changing your environment, meaning controlling what you put into your mind, what the information you're digesting, as well as the technology and information you're surrounding yourself with. So one thing that's helped for me is I've always had a hard time kind of falling asleep late at night or not worrying about a lot of things. And I've started to implement certain things red light before bed, blue light glasses 2 hours before I go to sleep, as well as, praying, every night before I go to bed, and kind of casting a lot of the things I worry about onto, God and things like that. And I've just noticed that it's helped a lot with my anxiety and, just overall sleep quality and things like that. The second thing I would say is just to focus on the present, not the past, and some future. So what do I mean by this? A lot of people say live in the moment, don't worry about anything else. I half agree with that. I think it's still good to plan for your future and be slightly concerned with your future. If you're unemployed and you're just homeless, I'd be slightly concerned, with the future. But overall, yes, it's good to focus on, the present day, because future builds over compounding, hard work. Your future is, one day after one day after one day. So it is good to focus on present day. And it's also good to be slightly concerned with the future, meaning like to have a plan in place, whether that's a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, or at least a general direction of where you want to go. There's nothing wrong with that, but definitely don't focus on the past. I've noticed I used to do this a lot, and I still do it myself, but I have this habit of like reanalyzing conversations I've had with people, like whether that was like the day before, weeks before, whatever, and like thinking of like ways I could have said different answers differently or approached the conversation differently. And like that's good for some type of feedback, but overall, like it is kind of like a waste of time. Like you're just going to go and you're going to worry about what you could have done differently instead of focusing on, doing stuff differently the next time the situation arises, right? So don't always focus on things that you could have done differently. Like you can't live your whole life in regret. And it's not going to help anyone, right? It's not going to help you. It's not going to help your relationships. It's not going to help your friendships. Like it's going to pull you in so many different directions. And overall, this is not a good habit to get into. Like I said, it's good to reflect in an overall positive manner. But if you're constantly worried about what happened in the past, you're never going to be, calm enough to actually focus on your future, right? So keep that in mind. And then the third point I would make about anxiety is, to look internally as well, not just externally. So what do I mean by that? I mentioned on the first point to change your external environment, which is true, but you also need to look inside yourself. A lot of people think that anxiety is like this, and same thing with, even like other stuff like feeling depressed, right? A lot of people think that this stuff happens to them, not within them, right? So you might have certain mineral deficiencies that you don't even know that could be causing increased anxiety, right? Whether that's vitamin D3 and K2, whether that's vitamin B6, whether that's L-theanine. Like there's a lot of things that you can supplement to help kind of combat some of this anxiety and things of that nature. And on top of that, overall anxiety is a state of mind. It's an emotion, right? So your body doesn't feel safe. It doesn't trust itself, right? Think about it this way. If you tell yourself that you're not gonna, eat a certain food, or you tell yourself that you're gonna go to the gym 3 days a week and you don't do it time and time again, you're essentially lying to yourself. And when you lie to yourself, then you're not trusting yourself. And when you're not trusting yourself, then you're worrying, right? So it's a chain reaction. People don't think that it's related, but it's actually very related, and it's very similar. A thing that I relate to this a lot is in my day-to-day job. So like a little bit about me, I'm in sales. I sell in an industry that's kind of like a newer industry, like software to kind of give you a more specific, and that involves like cold calling. And the thing with cold calling that I've found is a lot of people just don't want to cold call because they're scared to do it. I personally, I'm not like a huge fan of cold calling, but I know how to do it, and like I'm fairly good at it, or at least decent at it. And the thing is, I heard a sales trainer say this one time, and I really resonate with it in terms of cold calling, because there's a lot of anxiety like right before you like do a bunch of cold calls, like you're kind of worried about it. And this person said that you don't have to feel good to start, but you have to start to feel good. And overall, you don't want to do something, whether that's cold calling, whether that's getting in a ice bath, or whether that's, studying for a test, or whether that's, any type of goal that you want to achieve where there's a little bit of resistance there and there's some worry around it. Every single time you just jump in that water anyway and you dive in head first, you always feel better after. Like every single time. I've never met a single person that didn't want to go to the gym and went to the gym anyway and walked out of the gym pissed off and mad. Every time after you exercise, you feel happy. You feel good. Your endorphins are running. You feel good about yourself. Like the, increased blood flow, oxygen, lung capacity, all this stuff, right? It's all connected. Mind, body, and spirit. It's all connected, right? So, don't worry too much and don't overanalyze things too much. I would say just jump in and do stuff, right? A lot of people are afraid. They have fear, right? What is fear? False expectations appearing real. 90% of the things that you're afraid of will never happen, right? They just won't. Like in my experience throughout my whole life, I was always anxious about everything, whether that was like sports, whether that was, class stuff, whether that was relationship stuff. And most of the time it didn't happen, right? You ever see like those situations where, a guy or a girl is really anxious that their girlfriend or boyfriend's cheating on them, and, their own anxiety pushes them away. Like, you can't stop other people from doing stuff, right? I've just learned that instead of worrying if someone's going to cheat on you, right? Just deal with it if it actually does happen, right? And if it does happen, oh what? So well, you win in the end anyway. Don't worry about, your car breaking down, or, you're losing your job. Like everyone's going to go through hard things. I've just learned that it's better to, yes, be somewhat prepared, but not to overanalyze and worry about everything, because that worrying is going to affect your performance and your mindset in your day-to-day life overall. So I guess the moral of the story is, instead of worrying about things, realize that if you worry, it's actually going to make your life worse, and it's a chain reaction, right? So, overall, change your environment. Don't, be consuming a lot of bad information, crazy news stories, looking at stuff all day on your phone late at night, taking in blue light. Make sure you get good quality sleep. Like, that has everything to do with your environment. Number 2 was focus on the present, not the past and some future. Like I said, it's good to be semi-concerned with the future, but overall, focus on your day-to-day habits and don't dwell on the past, right? Living in regret is no good way to live. And then the third is look internally as well, not just externally, right? So overall, guys, that's the kind of the spiel of the video. Hopefully that helped you to some extent in regards to some of the ways you feel. It took a little bit of pressure off your shoulders, so to speak. And like I said, I'd love to hear in the comments if any of you guys struggle with anxiety or, trouble focusing, or maybe sleep, poor sleep quality. I'd be happy to kind of go back and forth and talk about any of that stuff. And it's stuff that I've dealt with kind of my whole life. And I'm no expert by any means. I'm not, I'm not a sleep doctor or anything, but some of these things that I've implemented have definitely helped me day to day. And whether that's anxiety overall or just, getting a little bit of better sleep. So, let me know in the comments below if you guys deal with any of this stuff, and stay tuned for future videos.